Let's talk about H-1B visas. So, what are they? Before we get to the why the uproar, can you just give us the basic history of it in layman's terms? Because a lot of people out there, are kind of new to this because heard about H-1Bs in the news a lot. But basically, what are they? Why does it exist?
Yeah, I think maybe a little background might be helpful for just people who are not familiar with immigration. Generally, to work in the United States, you have to be either a US citizen, a permanent resident, or a non-immigrant with a work permit or work visa. The H-1B visa is one of those work visas. It is actually the workhorse for the American economy in the sense that it is catered to, or it targets people who are in the technology industry and generally people who are specialized workers. That is to say, generally it's considered appropriate for people who have at least a bachelor's degree in some specific areas, such as engineering, architecture, nursing, teaching, or whatever it might be. So that's generally the background. And what it's designed to do is fill in the gaps. It's felt that America's economy, in certain instances, has gaps, and American employers are not able to find the qualified people they need in these areas. And so they apply through the US Citizenship and Immigration Service to get permission to hire foreign workers who can fill in these gaps. So that's the basic gist of what these visas are. There are 85,000 visas allowed each year by the government. But the problem is that there are more than 85,000. For example, last year, more than 300, I think it was 360,000 people applied for these visas. So they're oversubscribed each year. There are way more people who want them than there are visas available or made available by the US government.
Got it. So, who do the visas actually belong to? From my understanding, is the employer who's requesting the visas, right?
Right. So the employer finds or sees someone that they would like to hire and they want to offer them a job. So the process is that there's a lottery involved in issuing these visas. Unlike any of the other work visas, there's a lottery in this case because of the high demand and the shortage of numbers that are available. So the employer, having identified an employee they want to hire, files, opens a portal on the US Citizenship and Immigration Service and indicates that at the relevant time, which is March of each year, they open this program up for the H-1B season. And the employers register with the US CIS for the lottery. That is to say, to be possibly chosen as one of the successful people or organizations that will be able to sponsor the relevant immigrant that they've identified. That's the way the system starts.
And that person who they've chosen has to satisfy at least the equivalent of a bachelor's degree.
Yes, that's right. That's the sort of cutoff point. And the visas, this 85,000 quota consists of two parts. There are 20,000 that are available for higher degrees, master's and PhD people, and then the balance are for people who have at least the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree in a specific area.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation going out there about um, who can qualify, and is it the case that people who have less than a bachelor's can get in?
What can happen is you can get the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree in an area by getting your work experience evaluated by a US organization that evaluates credentials of people who are applying for immigration purposes. And the general rule is for every 3 years of relevant, pertinent work experience, you get credited for 1 year of education. So, for example, if you're an engineer, you want to apply as an engineer for a job in the US, and there's an employer who wants you, maybe you don't have quite 4 years of US engineering, but you may have some foreign experience working in an engineering field. For every 3 years of engineering related work experience, you may be credited by an evaluator as having 1 year of the 4 years necessary to be equivalent to a US a bachelor's degree in engineering, and you can qualify in that way.
What do they have to pay you? What does the employer actually have to give you just as a salary? Is there a certain benchmark?
Uh, that's the key to the whole program. And what's missed in the debate,
Hmm.
there are two ways of determining what should be paid to the relevant candidate. Generally, the way is that the employer must pay the candidate what's called the prevailing wage rate for workers in that field. So the government goes around each year, the Department of Labor, and does surveys of what are the wage rates that are being paid for workers in given areas. For example, engineers in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in New York, etc. And also these wage salary determinations are categorized under four categories: new person, medium, experienced person, etc. And so they come up with wage rates that are, in their view, the prevailing wage rate for, let's say, an engineer who wants to work in Los Angeles. So the employer in that situation, if he wants to hire someone for, or she wants to hire someone for Los Angeles to work as an engineer, that employer has to go through a process to determine what is the prevailing wage rate as indicated by the Department of Labor. And that's online. You can go online to determine that. And that's the wage rate you have to pay. Or if you in your business pay higher wages than the prevailing wage, then you must pay the actual higher wage than the prevailing wage rate. Almost invariably, it's the prevailing wage rate that matters.